What's up, y'all? My name is Karina Cook. I am a tax and financial strategist. I'm a CEO, a businesswoman, a faith-led businesswoman at that. Welcome to Evolving Out Loud. I'm your host, Karina Cook, tax and financial strategist. Listen, we are here to talk about money, finance, faith, entrepreneurship, leadership, mindset, everything else in between. I'm so happy to have you guys here in Evolving Out Loud, where we'll cover all these topics. So whether you are looking to become a better leader, from helping scale your business from one level in your finance to a whole nother level, or just needing some clarity on where to actually start in your finance and leadership, here we are becoming, and we are all evolving, and we are evolving out loud. So I'm so happy to have y'all here. Today we're going to talk about boundaries. I think this is very important in finding your voice and setting boundaries in business, because that's going to be the most important part as you're elevating as an entrepreneur in business and really scaling yourself and trying to figure out where you are and how you can become better at what you do. A part of that is boundary setting and communication. There needs to be boundaries in business. Otherwise, you're going to be running around being a yes man, scared, afraid of conflict. And mind you, conflict is good when you have healthy conflict. Everybody needs to set boundaries, including those people who you come in contact with. That is what we're going to talk about in this podcast topic today. And we're going to uncover how that looks, because you can be successful on paper, right? And you can still do all these things, but still shrink, still avoid things, still go in your silence and stop becoming who you are and your true self and essence in rooms that you needed to set boundaries in and required you to do this in order to fill the space that you're going to be in. So I hope that you guys get something out of it and learn how to find your voice through my stories and honoring who you are and your value, because that is ultimately going to be the key in what you do in life and how you impact people and how you use your gift, talents, and treasure to make an impact with others in their life. This is going to be applicable in business, lifestyle, and leadership. And so with that, y'all, let's talk about one. I want to bring up me actually having to set boundaries and get out of my element of one, saying no to things. And I've talked about this in the past on my Instagram and my stories, of really just saying no and getting comfortable with saying no. But how do you do that, right? Because you have to get down to the underlining of why you would say yes to everything. One, you might not have an idea of what you truly want to do, so you say yes. And in the beginning of business, maybe that's a good thing, because you are actually figuring out what it is you want to do. You're getting real life experience with what it is you really want to do and how you want to be effective. So in the beginning, it is important to develop what you truly like before you say no to everything, right? Because how do you get experience? I mean, imagine someone saying, "Hey, Karina, can you do a speaking event?" And I say no. Well, how am I going to become an effective speaker if I say no to everything in the beginning? That is going to allow me to practice, to see how I can pivot, to see my mistakes, to hear what people like, what they don't like, what works, what doesn't work. So in the beginning, sure, say yes, but say it with respect to what you're doing. Okay. But as you become more seasoned, then saying yes to everything is not what's going to help you. It's saying yes to the right things will help you. And so within that, I believe that the real reason that us as entrepreneurs, or I know for myself as an entrepreneur, staying quiet in the room, I did it because I didn't want to go through confrontation. If I say no to this, or if I do this, it's going to rub them the wrong way. And when I got down to the nitty gritty of that, it's a level of fear, right? Fear of being misunderstood or not liked, or missing an opportunity or the next opportunity with this person or this thing because I said no, or fear of rejection, confrontation because if I do speak up in this area, I will be judged or this will escalate. However, this can go into a whole nother session of therapy, y'all, because when we start to think this way, we are actually planning things out in our head that didn't happen yet. It's not healthy for your business, because then you start to take on things and then you start to avoid things that you could have handled up front that gets pushed along because you didn't handle it. So I think it's also a lack of having clarity, like I said before, clarity of like, well, what do you want to do? And then it goes into confidence. Well, do you have confidence in this area? So those are some things to unravel. And as I start to go through relationships and partnerships and projects, I start to see that I was avoiding conflict more than anything, right? And it was a confidence thing that you have to stand in and say, okay, why am I being passive and why am I peacekeeping in this? And also, why am I staying silent in rooms that I should be loud in? And it just depends on the loudness, guys. I'm not saying loud yelling, but when I walk in the room that I'm supposed to be in, why am I holding myself back to things that may cause a little bit of a conflict and saying, instead of saying what I truly think? So that had became a thing for me because I feel like it was costing me a little bit more than I had anticipated on it costing me, to be honest. And I had to go deal with that and say, listen, in business, I need to honor my voice. And so here's the thing, honoring your voice does not dishonor the person that you're coming against. That's literally just you being who you are in a room and being true to yourself and true to what you believe in. Okay? It's not doing anything different. It's not being dishonest. It's not honoring that person who you actually were interacting with. It's actually doing them justice. This is what human interaction and connection is. In business, we go through negotiations. We go through setting our fees, our pricing. We go through building different type of partnerships to do stuff. We go through hiring employees and possibly being a contractor for other people. In these realms, these are things that you have to go through. When I start to think about boundary, it almost makes me think of it's still a form of stewardship. Stewardship goes beyond just money. Stewardship goes beyond everything that was given to you as a gift and given to you in general. God gave us everything, right? So everything that we have that we come in possession of, how are we stewarding? How are we managing? So we take steward out because funny, my auntie said, you using these big words. Okay. So if I want to break down stewards, manage, how do I manage what I have? Including my boundaries, including my silence, including the obstacles. So those are things that I feel like when you're becoming who you are as an entrepreneur, this is something you have to tackle. I got into a lot of different partnerships, and also I do a lot of things. Sometimes you want the best for the outcome, right? I want this person to win as well as myself, right? So if I'm going to do this thing, it could potentially help this person win. Then a lot of the times I'm thinking in that area, but I might not be thinking about the things that happen during the process. Into conversations where it's like, okay, how do I address me not wanting to do this because of this reason and still have this friendship or this partnership or this respect? And I can talk about it with other things that I do in leadership, that I have to use my voice and I have to use my opinion in order to make a decision. So as I'm doing that, not really calculating so far ahead about what the person may think if I disagree, right? Or I vote on this thing that's completely opposite from what they're looking to do. How do I do that? Well, I do that by assessing what my values and my morals are. And if it goes against any of those things, that gives me leverage to say either I'm not going to do it or I am. Another level is going through my time. What time will it take for me to do this? Now, when I think about things, I'm always thinking on the level of servantship. How can I serve the other person? But sometimes you are a servant, right? And I believe that being a servant is in all areas. However, to your capacity. You ever heard of them doing if you ride an airplane, right? They tell you all the instructions before they take off. They tell you how to put the mask on, how to tighten it, the whole process from A to Z. They also tell you not to put the mask on someone else first. You have to put it on yourself, including your children, including your loved ones, including your sick parent that's there. You have to put the mask on you first. And then once the mask is on you, then you can help the other person. So I look at that also true for business, because how am I learning how to set boundaries and think about my time, my values, my morals, my integrity, and also my mission for what I'm here trying to do, but still align that with being a servant and helping other people and getting into the right partnerships. So I think it's not really changing who you are, what you're normally used to, and making a different move based on like revealing what God is calling you to be before that move, right? So it's not going to change you. So for me, I look at God calling me to be a leader, a steward of what he has given me. I look at me being the salt and the light in rooms. I love to say I'm a salt and the light, y'all. That's my favorite scripture in Matthew, is being the salt and light and not changing who I am or who I'm becoming, because that's not what it's about, right? It's about being in a room, being a salt and light, and revealing what God has called me to be in that room for that person, for that place, and for that thing. And that's who he just owed to me. I mean, that's who he designed me to be. And I can't be nothing else. And so when you're walking into these things, like taking yourself and saying, like, I don't care what that person says, because in my intention, now there's boundaries again, y'all. I'm not saying to go cuss somebody out left and right. That's not the way I believe it should be done. It needs to be in decency and order and respect. And as you do that, then the person on the other end, they're either going to be able to accept it and or reject it. If they reject it, that's their problem, right? That's something that they have to handle with themselves, because I know that I've handled it to the best of my ability and I meant well. My intentions were all the way good. And so it does take time, it takes practice. And I've been learning that as I go in business. Being a woman in the room, even in the accounting industry, it's male dominated. And a lot of places are male dominated. And even some other things that I do in leadership roles where, I might be the minority. And sometimes it feels like you have to take a step back, or you have to take a different route because people might get offended or whatever the case may be. But when you stay true to who you are, which is a practice, learning that it doesn't matter if you're the minority in a race, a culture, or even a gender, that your opinion matters, especially if it's coming from the right place, that you can set boundaries, and that you don't have to sit in silence, because that's what moves us from one place to another. Life and connection and relationship is about communication. People are not going to be able to trust who you are or get the full benefit of you if you do not communicate and you sit in silence. And so I've been learning that as I've been evolving through certain relationships and processes, that it's okay to say yes, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to tell them how you feel in a respectful way, or disagree with someone, because even if they disagree, it's still healthy conflict if you do it in a healthy manner, because you can agree to disagree. Being able to establish that for me was really important when I realized that being silent didn't work anymore. Standing on that works. Saying that I'm not going to do this works. And saying that, look, you need to get those documents to me on time, or you're going to get charged. because I'm charging for my time. Why? Because I'm setting boundaries. Why? Because I appreciate my time. Why? Because time is valuable. Time is more than money, because I can get money anytime, but I can't get time back. So when we're on the clock, I need it. I'm not going to run from that. And so realizing that all these things really truly matter. And I recently had a conversation with a business partner, and I felt like I was being passive, to say the least, to keep the peace. That wasn't serving any of us. Before I had the realization that I had left that side of me behind because I wasn't who I wanted to be in that moment. I realized that I didn't have to be likable, that it's okay to not be likable because one, God loves me and I show who I am up front. Now, y'all, I have a little, when I was younger, I used to say things at the top of my head. And so as I got older, I tried to silence that because I would say how I feel. And my family members still know me to that day. But when I get in professional settings, I'm like, no, it's okay. Boundaries are not like, boundaries aren't walls. Okay? They're not walls. They're not saying I'm not letting anyone in, right? It's just saying that I am going to set something. I'm trying to think about how I really want this to come out because it's not a wall. I think that is just a place to build a healthy connection for you and for your mental health and your well-being. And I mean, ultimately, if you want to serve, you think about the other person a little bit. But like, it's not being too much by saying this is what it is and I'm not going to do that and I have a voice to tell you this and come from a great place and then we can move forward and then go from there. And usually I've learned when I had been in situations like that, people move forward for the most part, where they're like, okay, cool. Like, cool. I just know not to come at her like that. So I know that when I have this conversation, we can talk about it. And so like, when we think about being silent and not speaking up and not doing that, it costs in the long run, y'all. It costs because you wait until things are like, even for me, it's like you don't want to, Karina, you don't want to wait until things are going to cost you partnerships, like being silent for a long time or not saying how you really feel or just not setting boundaries, because in the long run, it's going to cost you if you wait. Okay. It's going to cost you money, partnerships, relationships, time. And that is the most important part. It's like you don't want it to cost that. Now, if it does, and if you are at that point where it costs that for you, then it is what it is. Just to me, you have to take it with a grain of salt and say, okay, this is where I am, and I'm just going to pivot. And, we hear these words, pivot, all the time. It's a really great trend word right now, but it's exactly that. Like, how can I do that? And how can I use my voice as an asset with where I am? Because I know who I am and I know the value that I provide and where I'm coming from. And that's just that. Now, that's different from being a goody two shoe and a person who's never right or never wrong. That's just, you got to think like becoming who you are is a thing that is necessary. It's necessary. Evolving is necessary. So even when I take back all these things that I have felt like I'm being silent, I'm not being like who in this thing, right? I didn't tell them how I really felt. I evolved from it and I've learned from it. So moving forward, how do I pivot, right? Moving forward into a relationship or the current relationship or a new relationship with my partners, my friends, my family, execs, other leaders, CEOs, it really doesn't matter, right? It's okay to be messy in it. It's okay to figure it out. It's okay to think about how you said things and then say, I'm going to do it differently this time around. That's okay. It starts with you knowing that it needs to happen and you saying it needs to happen and you setting that in place so that you can make this a habit to practice throughout your entrepreneur journey, because there's going to be more partnerships, relationships, obstacles that require you to do these things. And, being a leader and having a team and saying, hey, this is what it is. Obviously, you want to create a great culture, but you still want to have boundaries with your team, right? If you do that, you'll have better connections. Through this time of me going through it, I'm like, okay, I see where I've done things that may have been a little bit more passive that I can do differently, and how it can help me in the long run and help the other person moving forward. How it can help somebody else figure out how they're going to do what they're doing. Walk away knowing that you can do that you can set boundaries. Shrink from having conversations with people, that you do not have to shrink when it comes to saying how you feel with setting your boundaries. You do not have to be silent in things that you should be speaking up for. And that healthy conflict is good conflict resolution. And, I think that you'll learn a lot from doing that. And so when you do that, let me know in the comments, because I think also what I want to say is, like, y'all, don't apologize for it. Just do what you're supposed to do. Be the salt and the light in the room. And you'll learn that people love that. Okay? And so, take the time to think about, where have I been silent in the process where I could have created a little bit more peace. With that, I hope that this has helped a little bit, because of my experience of saying, I'm going to move differently. And move differently is to protect my boundaries, to build great partnerships, to protect the other person, so that we can all win. Okay? And so when we leave at that, just learn how to speak. And I'm saying this to myself, just learn how to speak with your grace and your truth. And that's just it. And so with that being said, I hope this was a great episode for you guys. Continue to evolve out loud. Continue to be that salt and that light when you walk in the room, and be the don't let the silence kill you, because that's who you are. Okay? You are somebody who sets boundaries, who can set boundaries, who can have your voice be heard and not be silenced by being fearful of what the other person may think if you don't. And that healthy conflict is good conflict. So let me know how you guys are dealing with this in your zone, and what you're going to practice on moving forward if this is something that you've already been dealing with. So till next time, I'll see y'all in the next episode. We'll be evolving and doing it out loud. Peace. Exciting to say the least, and I'm happy that I'm doing it with you guys. Until next time, I love y'all, and welcome to Evolving Out Loud.